Brands are meant to be built. And when you're just living in short-term return on investment, you wind up focusing on metrics that aren't going to drive business.
I'm Stephanie Paterick, Editor-in-Chief, and I have an amazing guest here in the current studio today. Michael Epstein is Global and US CEO of Starcom. Michael, thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me.
So Michael,
Yeah.
I am very curious to know, what is your most unpopular opinion about the advertising industry?
I have many. There's two probably, though, I think I would share. One, it seems of late we're a little antagonistic towards each other as an industry, sort of coming after each other a bit more than in recent memory. I think maybe because things are a bit more competitive. So that's sort of something that has been on my mind, like how do we elevate the conversation? But the thing that we spent a lot of time thinking about is sort of the focus on short-term return versus thinking about medium or longer-term return from a client perspective. One of our employees called it the tyranny of relentless optimization. You know, brands are meant to be built. And when you're just living in short-term return on investment, one, you wind up focusing on metrics that aren't going to drive business, things like ROI, which are important, but we have a lot of clients that are somewhat singular focused on that. And you're not building brands, and brands are meant to be built.
I'm curious on that note, what your view is on brand building and performance marketing. And sometimes I feel like they're positioned as a versus.
Yeah, whether you call it full funnel, whether you call it omni, Publicis, we believe there should be no dead ends, and that's why we've made some of the investments of late that we've made. But they shouldn't be mutually exclusive. Like, I don't know why we think that performance media can't be building a brand. Like, it is creating awareness. It's just closer to the point of conversion. And likewise, I don't know why typical brand type things are the domain of brand building versus also performance.
Speaking of clients, what do you wish every marketer knew?
We actually genuinely care about their businesses and them as people, by and large. So I think that if they approach that would make it easier for us to do our best work. If we stopped the constant negotiation, and this is not a one size fits all, where we're trying to sometimes race to the bottom on things like fees, like better brands charge a premium, so to speak, and sometimes we get stuck in it needs to be cheaper, the pricing needs to get cheaper, et cetera. But if you come from a place of good, that actually what we're trying to do is just help you to grow your business, and that we really care, I think we would all be in a better place.
How do you get brands off this idea of cheap reach?
I think what we're starting to figure out is you have to reverse engineer from the destination you're trying to get to, and then reverse engineer it back. And so if you start and say, well, what are the metrics that are really going to matter to me?
Yeah.
Then it's easier to have that conversation.
From your view, what does the future model of agencies look like?
There isn't a future agency model because no agency has all of the capabilities that they need to be successful and make their clients successful. So to me, the agency of the future is one where we are giving strategic guidance to our clients, and we're tapping into the capabilities that the group, in this case Publicis, has acquired, and operating seamlessly so that we're taking friction out of that. An old client of mine once said, Mark Pritchard, your complexity is not my problem. So making sure that we can align those capabilities together in a way to deliver for our clients is important. And there isn't Starcom does not have all of those capabilities, the group does. And it's how we are the aperture to access those things that makes us successful on behalf of our clients.
Where do you see the most promise in advertising right now? And how are you messaging that to your clients?
I do think the impact, if used to its fullest potential, of AI is going to be really important. How we continue to leverage data to develop better insights and understand consumers probably has a lot of promise, and we made an investment in Epstein to help us do that, and how we partner outside of the U.S. With other data providers to do that. I think that's the promise, like creating better experiences. I think trying to figure out how to harness the power of influencer as a channel, right? So the acquisition we made for Influential, to quote Artur Sadoun, what people are saying about your brands is not, if not more important than what you're saying about your brand. That's a pretty potent insight.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of promise, and there's also a lot of risk. but there's a lot of promise. So to me, like, I think those are the three things. I also think, and I'll say this as a media person, we seem to be moving more forward in the strategic conversations with our clients than we ever had, where that used to be the role of a brand agency. We're being brought in much earlier in the conversation, much further forward in the conversation to help figure out how to design the experiences first, potentially before the content.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're not just coming in at one point
Correct.
on a conveyor belt,
Yeah.
but you're really working with them across the
Yeah.
whole thing. Michael, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
in today. I've loved this conversation.
Me too.